Hi everyone, I am Gina Wilson from All Things Algebra, and I am excited to share with you a few digital hacks on how we can take non-digital PDF activities and transform them into a digital activity that your students can complete remotely and send back to you. I'm going to show you mazes and math libs. Those two things I have shared in my Facebook community. So if you're a member of that, then you will recognize those. And I'm also going to show you scavenger hunts. And anything that I make during this session, I'm going to be doing a few mazes and a scavenger hunt. That's going to be available to you at the end as bonus free resources. So hopefully you are able to use them in your classroom. And if not, if you don't teach the courses that I'm using, then you can use them as a template or an idea to create your own with your own resources. So I'm going to look at mazes. So my first example is this inverse trig functions maze. And I have 4 versions of this in this file. I'm just going to look at version 1. So I want to take this maze and I want to put it into Google Slides so that students can interact with it and then send it back to their teacher. So how I'm going to do that is basically the snipping tool. I'm going to open up the snipping tool, and if you have a Mac, there is their own version of the snipping tool. So I'm going to click New, and I'm going to grab a screenshot of this page and save it. I'm going to call it Inverse Trig Functions Maze BG for background. All right, so I have my, my image. So what I'm going to do now is go into Google Slides. A trick that I learned to open up a new slides document is in the address bar, type slides.new, and that's going to open up a brand new slides document for you. And I'm going to title this Inverse Trig Functions Maze. Right, so we need to change the size of this page, of this slide, to match the size of a sheet of paper. So what I'm going to do is go to File, Page Setup, and go to Custom. And we want 8.5 by 11. Hit Apply. And we're going to delete this stuff. You need to insert the background, and the background is going to be the image that I took of that maze. So we go to Choose Image, Browse, and done. Okay, so I have this maze locked in as the background of this slide. Now I need a way for students to be able to mark their answers or the pathway through the maze, their answers to these problems. I think it's easiest to use circles. So what I like to do is insert circles. You want to make sure that the circles have a transparent fill. That means that when you go and put them over the maze, you can see through them. Transparent fill, and then you can also change the color of the border if you'd like. I'll pick purple. You want to copy and paste a lot of these circles because the students are going to be dragging them over each of their answers. So I'm going to hit Control C and Control V to start putting a bunch of circles here. I would do at least 15. You may want to briefly check the answer key to make sure that you have, plenty of circles to get students through the maze. I'm sure some of the older students would probably know how to copy paste more of them, but just in case, just make sure you have enough of them over here. And I'm just putting them one on top of the other. Right, and then, so what we're going to do now is we're going to type some directions. So let's see, text box, directions, drag a circle over each of your answers to show your pathway through the maze. You can change those as needed if your students need more explanation. I'm just giving you a quick example. So we have our directions over here, and we have these circles below. So what students would do is they would begin at the start box and they would find this value, and then they would drag a circle over their solution. And they would continue doing that until they reached the end of the maze. So this will be a way for them to interact and show you their solutions. So I also want to give you another idea with this, a way for students to show their work. I would have students work out these problems on a sheet of notebook paper, and then they can, here I'm going to insert a new slide. They can insert an image of their work on a separate slide. So I'll put insert images of your work below. So they can take pictures with their device of their work, and then they can go ahead and go to insert image and put those there for you to see as well. So everything will be all in one. So, all right, so I have this one done, and this is one that you'll have to use if you wish, or just use it as a template. I'm going to do another maze for you. I'm going to do a distance formula maze. So for the distance formula maze, I'm going to go ahead and get my snipping tool out, take a screenshot of the page, and save it. Got that. Remember that trick to open a new slides is slides.new. Now this one will be a little bit different. Let me get my title in here. Distance formula maze. For this one, this one is a portrait. So when you do your file page setup, your dimensions, we're going to flip this, and instead of 8.5 by 11, we're going to do 11 by 8.5. Okay, and then you go to background, choose image, find the screenshot of the maze that I just made. Done. And I like working a little bit smarter. So what I'm going to do is, since I already did the circles and the directions on the other maze, I'm just going to go ahead here and copy them and go to this new maze and paste it. So that's done. And I can insert a new slide and have students, I'm going to copy this right there. So there's another one done. I'm actually going to do one more. So you're going to get 3 mazes. If you already have like a landscape one already made, or if you already have a portrait one already made, what you can do is go to File, Make a Copy, Entire Presentation. I'm going to do the midpoint formula maze right now. Okay. So now all I need to do is change the background. So it's like super quick and easy. I'm going to go into here, midpoint formula, click New. And save this. And we're going to change, you click on background to change the background. And it's this one, there we go. So once you do a maze or two, or if you use mine as your templates, they're super quick and easy to do. You may want to, depending on the amount of work involved, give students extra slides to upload those pictures of their work. All right, next thing I'm going to show you is how to take a scavenger hunt and transform it into a digital activity. And I'm going to show you 2 ways to do this, using Google Slides and then also using Google Forms. Using Google Slides is definitely the much simpler in terms of prep. It doesn't take long at all for you to put together. But using Google Forms, which does take a long time to put together, is a little bit better of an experience for the students. and for you in checking their work. It really sets it up very nicely in order to see all the different parts of the scavenger hunt to make sure that they did the correct order and everything. So my example for this one is a compound interest scavenger hunt. Let me open this here. So in this compound interest scavenger hunt, there are 12 problems. They begin with problem A, and then they look for their answer in the box in the upper left-hand corner to know which problem to go to next. So if, for example, if they solve this problem and they get the answer right up here, then they would know that E is next. So I'm going to start with showing you how you can easily put this in Google Slides for the students to manipulate. Unlike the mazes, I use the snipping tool. That works really well when you only have one page. But if I'm looking at, I need 12 screenshots like now, I think the website I Love PDF is super handy. So I Love PDF. We can use this website to upload a PDF, and it's going to give us JPEGs of each page of the PDF, which is going to save you the screenshotting. So you go to ilovepdf.com, you go to PDF to JPEG right here. We can select our PDF file, which is this compound interest scavenger hunt. And then we can go ahead, if you can't see because my face is in your way, but down here is where we convert. Takes just a few moments. And we can download our JPEG images. It will download as a zip file, so it'll all be in one download. So we have them here. I am going to copy them. I'm going to create a folder here called screenshots, and I'll paste them. Now, when you do this, you will also get screenshots of my cover pages. So you can go ahead and delete those if you'd like, unless you have some use for them. And see, I'm gonna hold on to these answer key ones later because I might need that down the road to see the answer key. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you the easy way, slides, Google Slides. So you go to slides.new, remember that trick, slides.new, and we are going to title this Compound Interest Scavenger Hunt. You need to change the dimensions of the slide because this one is landscape. For this scavenger hunt, I need 11 by 8.5. And there are 12 problems, so I'm going to duplicate 12 slides. All right, so now that we have our 12 slides ready to go, all we need to do is insert the backgrounds on each one. So we're going to go browse and find those screenshots that we got from the I Love PDF website. And you do that, remember you click background, choose image. You want to do the background instead of inserting an image to make sure it's not floating in the background. I'm going to do one more and then I'm going to hit pause while I finish the other ones. Okay, hitting pause. Okay, so I have all 12 slides of the scavenger hunt in here now. So what students could do is that they could solve each of the problems and then they could go to view, grid view, and they can arrange the problems based on their answers. So if the answer to letter A is letter H, they would just drag that and they would continue doing that. And what you could have them do is also, you could insert a blank slide. Let's see here, new slide. And you could have your students insert images of your work below. So same thing as what I did with the maze. You could have a slide for them to insert their work for you to see that as well. So this is the definitely the easiest way to do a scavenger hunt. But I like how it looks and forms better. So I want to show you that because I think that you would really like that. It also makes submitting and as far as grading it a little bit easier. So let me show you. I already did this scavenger hunt just to play around with it. So I'm going to show you what it looks like, and then I'll show you how to build it and make it on your own. So let's see here. Okay. So this is my Google Forms version of this activity. So what I did is, just take a second, let this load. Okay. So on this first page, the students would enter their email address, and they would give you their last name and first name. Click next. The first page is problem A. So the directions say to solve the problem below, find your answer in the previous answer box. Click on that problem to move to the next problem. If done correctly, you will solve all 12 problems, and the answer to the last problem you solve will be the answer at the top of problem A below. Note, this is important, record the order of the problem letters as you solve them. You will enter this order at the end. So they will need to keep track of that they go from A to C to J and so on. So they want to make sure that they make note of that. So here's problem A, and I have all the different other slides below. So let's say the answer to A is G, so they would click on G, and they would go next. And problem G then shows up. They would go ahead and solve problem G, and let's say they get B. They would go next. And let's see, problem J. If I remember correctly, according to the answer key on this one, I think K is the last problem before it goes back to A. So I'm going to skip forward to that right now. So let's see, they would get to K as the last problem, and they would solve it, and the answer to K should be A. And once they click that, it will end the loop. So it says, good job, you made it back to where you started. Beginning with A, type the order of the 12 problem letters in which you solve them. Use all caps and no spaces. I'm going to pull up the answer key to this one. So they would type, this is my answer key down here. So they would type A, I, F, L, D, G, E, B, H, J, C, K. And then there's a place for them to add pictures of their work or upload files. And then they would click submit, and it would be sent to you. And you'll be able to see this letter order and how they answered each one of those questions leading up to it. So how do we make these? These are really, it's kind of complicated, but while doing it, I came up with a ton of time-saving tips for myself to make it go faster. So I'm going to show you how to do this. And I'm going to use the compound interest scavenger hunt as my example. Okay, so to create the scavenger hunt in Google Forms, we're going to go to forms.new. And I am going to title this Compound Interest Scavenger Hunt. Now I want to collect email addresses on this one. So I'm going to click save. So the first thing that will the students are going to be asked is their email address. And then I also had on mine type your last name. This is optional. I was just coming up with different items that you may want to collect information. So when you type in your type of question, you want to put short answer for your last name. You hit the plus sign to add another question. Type your first name. This one's also, I just went to short answer. You can click these as required questions so that they would be required to answer them before moving on. Okay, so from here, the way that you do scavenger hunts in forms, or the best way that I found to do them, is to create sections. And that makes it so that each question is essentially on a different page. Rather than scrolling through a giant long form and having everything on the same page, it allows you to jump one question to another based on the section. So I'm going to create sections for each of the 12 problems right now. So I'm going to go here. You go to this lower right icon right here. Click that. We're going to call section 2 problem A. And I'm going to keep doing this for each of my questions. So just insert new question, problem C. Right. And then I also had a section at the end where the students it said good job, and it asked them to record the letters in the order that they solved them. So I'm going to do a final section. So each scavenger hunt would have the number of problems plus the final slide and the initial slide. So if you have a scavenger hunt with 12 problems, you should have 14 sections. If your scavenger hunt has 20 problems, you should have 22 sections. So I'm going to title this section The End. Good job. You made it back to where you started. All right, so looking at that again, just so far what I have is I have this section 1, which is just collection of their email address, their first name, and their last name. After that, you're going to have a section for each scavenger hunt problem. And then you will, at the end, have a final section where the students can insert their work. There's going to be a file upload. And also, they're going to type in the order in which they solved the problems. So that's the first thing I found that was time saving, is to do the sections first. I'll make an outline, essentially. So what I'm going to do now is go to problem A, section 1. I'm going to add a question. I'm going to insert image, and I'm going to upload A. All right. For the directions, I'm going to write, let's see here, what did I have here? Solve the problem below. Find your answer in the previous answer box in the choices below. Click on that problem to move to the next problem. If done correctly, you will solve 12 problems and end with problem A. And then I had this note here, record the order of the problem letters as you solve them. You will enter this order at the end. Okay. We should probably have that on, I'm going to paste it on all of these too, the directions, just as a reminder that they should be recording the problem order as they go. All right, so that's it. Okay, so I have them back at problem A, and I'm going to use problem A, but I'm going to completely build it out, and then I'm basically going to duplicate it down the line. So I want this to be multiple choice. For my options, I'm going to upload images of all the other slides. I'm actually going to include A, and I'll show you why later, but just do them all. So we got A, and we're going to add option. We're going to add B. And keep going to add option and click on the image right here. And I'm going to hit pause again here as I go ahead and go through these and add them all in. So all you're doing is adding options. You're doing all 12. Okay, so I have gone through, and for the multiple choice options on problem A, I have uploaded screenshots of all 12 answers. So I'm going to include A as well, and then I'll show you why a little bit. I also like to, or you can just call this A. I like to change these to say A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J, K, F. Okay, so you have all your multiple choice options in for problem A. You need to figure out what happens when you click these options. You need it to link to that section. So if they click C right here, they click C, I need that to link down here to problem C. So what you do is you're going to change this to required because they have to answer this question. And then you're going to click on these 3 dots right here, and we're going to go to section based on answer. Click on that. So if they click on A, we are going to go to problem A. If they click on B, we're going to go to problem B. If they click on C, we're going to go to problem C. And I'm just going to go on. This was the step that I knew I did not want to do over and over and over again. So I'm doing it for A, and then I'm going to duplicate it for each of the problems. G, H, I, J. And this is why you want to do the sections first and name them first. And L. Okay, so we are good to go. We have everything that we need there. So what I would do now, so A is done. We can problem A. So what we would do is we're going to duplicate this question. And to duplicate a question, you go down here, right here, and I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to call it problem B. I'm going to click on these 3 little dots, and I'm going to go to change. And I'm going to change it to problem B. Now, this needs to go in section B. So I'm going to click these dots, these 6 dots up here, and I'm going to drag it down right below problem B, right here. And then I'm good. So then I scroll down, and I'm going to duplicate. I'm going to call it problem C. I'm going to change the image. And then I'm going to drag it down to section C, problem C. You always got to remember to drag it down to its correct section. So we're going to duplicate, and I'll do this a few times because this is the tricky step. You change the image, D. Don't forget to drag it down to be in the correct section. Duplicate. This is now problem E. So we need to change the image to be problem E. And then we will drag it down to problem E. Do one more, and then I'm going to hit pause. Duplicate. We are now on F. Change. Okay, I'm going to hit pause, and I'm going to do the remaining problems. Okay, so I have gone through each of the 12 problems and duplicated that question for each of the sections. I went ahead and changed the name of the problem, and I swapped out the problem. So I've done that all the way through L. What you can do from here, and this is just optional, it's really up to you preference, but so like if we're on A, then we can remove A as an answer. And then if I go down to problem B, the answer to B won't be B. So if you want to remove those, you can do that, just so that I'm sure the students would know, like you're not going to go to the same problem. But this is, I think it just makes it look better. So I'm just going to scroll through and click on the X to remove the question so they're not looping back to the same thing. So almost done. So let's see here, J. Okay, I've done all the difficult parts. I forgot to move L to section L. Make sure when you do this, I said it before, it's got to be problem L, yeah. Make sure that the problems, the questions are directly under their sections. We also need to have a way of stopping this loop, because otherwise the students are going to keep going from slide to slide to slide, and they're never going to hit this final slide at the end saying, good job, you made it. So the way that we end this is that we look for, in the answer key, look for the very last question before they loop back to A. So on this answer key, the last, in this particular one, the last one is K. So I'm going to go to K, which is, that one's L. Okay, so the answer to K is A. When they click on this, we don't want them to go back to problem A. We need to change the trigger to go to section 14, which is good job, you made it. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And that is how you will get them to that final slide so that they can submit the order of their letters and their work and submit. All right, so the last thing I have to do now is my ending slide, the good job, you're at the end, what now slide. So what I have here, and then there's a few options you can have on this slide, is so I'm going to add a question here. Hold on here. Oh, so add the plus sign. So question is beginning with A, type the order in which you solved the 12 problems. Use all caps. This is all preference because you can change all this. What I was thinking of when I was doing this, use all caps and no spaces, because this has to be put in a certain way to accept the answers. Example, I gave an example, A, C, J, E, I, Okay, so what they're going to do is type their the order in which they did them. So we want to do for this, instead of multiple choice, we want to do short answer. And then we want to make it a required question. And you have a couple options here when you do this. You can accept any answer. So you can see if they did not do it correctly. Or you can turn this into a bit of a self-checking activity where they'll know if they mess something up. And the way that happens is it just rejects their answer and says, try again. And they have to go back until they get the order right. So you can accept the answers not in the right order if you want, so that you can identify who did the activity correctly, who did not do the activity correctly. Or you can force it to only accept a certain answer. And if it doesn't, they have to go back on their own and try it again. So as it is right now, it will accept anything and it will send it to you. If you want it to only accept the correct answer, what you would do, make sure this is on required, go to response validation. And we're going to click on the down arrow and go to text. And then we are going to go contains, and you're going to type the answer right here. So the answer should be for this scavenger hunt, AIFL, oops, AIFLDGEEH JCK. So that is the correct answer that they must answer in order to respond to this. And if they do not type that in, you could do something like, that is not correct, try again. So that would force them to have to go back and do the scavenger hunt and try to figure out where their mistake might have been. And you can also, on this slide, go to add a question. And for your type of question, you can go to file upload, and you can, I'm going to click continue. And this one will give you a, it will allow the students to upload attachments that show their work. All right, so please upload attachments that show your work. If they have multiple attachments, like if they're taking several pictures of several sheets of paper, you may want to up the max. So maybe 10, that's probably a bit much, probably 5. As far as maximum file upload size, if they have pictures that might take up a lot of space, so you may want to increase that. And you can also make this required as well, where you will not accept it unless they show their work. So you can switch that to required. So that's it. So you're done once you hit this point. This is good to go, and you can share it with your students, and you will get responses based on their answers. All right. All right, so the last thing I want to show you is how to take one of my MathLib activities, if you're familiar with those, and turn them into a digital learning activity too. And this is much easier than the scavenger hunt. I purposely put that in the middle. So for my MathLibs, if you're not familiar with this type of activity, let me give you an example. We're going to take a look at this geometric mean example. The MathLibs will consist of 10 problems. For each of the 10 problems, the students will solve it. And then their answer, it's multiple choice, and their answer will reveal a part of a story. So for this first slide, they would solve this, and let's say they get Mrs. Sullivan, or letter D. Then they would go to the next problem, and they would go ahead and solve this one. And they would pick their answers, and it puts together a story about a teacher doing something silly or funny with a celebrity or an athlete. They're just meant to be super silly, funny stories. So anyways, these, because they're multiple choice, they make really awesome Google Forms activities because it's self-grading and you can do that multiple choice option. So for this, we need 10 different screenshots. So in this case, I'm not going to use the snipping tool again. I'm going to use that I Love PDF website again. So I'm going to go to I Love PDF and go to PDF to JPEG. You're going to find that JPEG file, and it's right here. And you're going to click Convert. You can download your images as a zip file. And I'm going to copy them into this folder. And you can go ahead and delete any pages you don't think you'll need. Let's do that. Okay. All right, so I don't think we would need this either. Okay. All right, so we have our screenshots, and also when you're done with all of this, if you don't want screenshots taking up space on your computer, there's really no need for them anymore. You can definitely delete them. This is just to get the backgrounds on the forms and in the slides. So let's do a new form. So we're going to go forms.new. And I am going to call this the geometric mean MathLib. I want this to be a quiz, so I'm going to make this a quiz. You can go ahead and change any of these options to whatever you prefer. I'm going to click Save. And I'm going to go to my first question. Question 1. We want it to be multiple choice because each of these math libs has 5 choices. So for question 1, I'm going to insert an image right here. And I'm going to pick the first slide. And for our multiple choice, we're going to do A. And then once you do A for your first choice, you can go to add all for B, C, D. And then since there's a 5th choice, we can add E. For our answer key, I like to do the answer key as I go along. So actually I have the answer key sitting out here so that I can look at that. I don't like going back and forth between screens too much. So I'm just going to have this open. All right, let me see, where's my answer key? Okay, I got it. Okay, so the answer to number 1 is E. So when I go to answer key, it is E, and I'm going to click Done. Okay. For point value, you can assign points if you want. Since this is a 10 question activity, you might want to maybe do 10. So each one is out of 10 points. And I'll click Done. All right, so let's go to the next question. We're just going to go to Add Question. And we're going, actually, I just had an idea. Let's duplicate. That's going to make that easier. I like duplicating. So we're going to go down here and we're going to click this button, Duplicate. We're going to change this to 2. So this is kind of like what I did with the scavenger hunt. We're going to change this image and we are going to change that to 2. Okay, and that by duplicating, it saves us from having to do this every time. So we are going to change the answer key. This answer for number 2 is A. Unclick E, Done. All right, so let's duplicate this. This will be question 3. We are going to swap it out for question 3. And looking at the answer key, the answer to question 3 is B. So we're going to go to our answer key, unclick A, click B, Done. And duplicate. Question 4. The answer to 4 is D. And again, I'm just getting these answers off the PDF of the activity. So this answer, you have to click on answer key to set the answer. So that one's D. Click Done. And then we're going to duplicate to question 5. Change. And my answer to question 5 is E. Go to my answer key. All right. And I'm going to hit pause and I'm going to finish these out by just duplicating the question, changing the question number, the image, and the corresponding answer for each of the 10 problems. Okay, so I have gone through and I have duplicated questions and gotten all 10 math libs on here. I have gone to the answer key for each one and made sure that the answers are correct for each slide, because if you duplicate it, it's going to be the same answer as the previous questions. You want to make sure that you go in there and that you change that. So this is pretty much good to go. Make sure that you have response required on all the 10 questions. The other thing that you can do if you want at the end of the activity is add another question with a paragraph answer. And you can have your students write the paragraph with the story. So we can put write your math lib below by or let's, using the template below, write a paragraph with your math. And you can play along with these, play with the directions a little bit. And what you can do here is insert an image of that MathLib template, and it looks just like this right here. I'm going to show you another trick. I know I was doing the I Love PDF website when I want a full page screenshot of every page in the PDF. If you do not want a full page screenshot, there are a couple options. You can go back to that snipping tool again if you would like. So I can do it right here. And I can save that. Oops, I lost it. Here we go. File, save as, right? You can do it like that, like I was doing there. And then here you would just go to insert image, and here it is. So that they would then write a paragraph using this template. So they would just use their answers from the problems above. Here I'll put using your selected answers from above, and the template below, write a paragraph with your MathLib story. All right. So all they would do then is they would just type out their paragraph based on their answer. So that is, and then you can make that required too, where they have to type in their paragraph answer. Or the other way, if you don't want to use the screen or the snipping tool, I'll show you how else we could do this. I'm going to go to remove. And I've showed this in my Facebook community before. There's a really nifty site called paste.pics, paste.pics. And that's a way for you to take screenshots and not have to save them on your hard drive, if that makes sense. So you take your screenshot. Here's my screenshot from the snipping tool. I'm going to copy it and paste it here. This is really good if you're snipping a lot of things. Like if you're snipping up a test to put in a Google form, this is definitely your best bet, paste.pics. Otherwise, you have to save each individual snip, which is a lot. So all I did was I took my snipping tool shot, and I went to this website, and you just hit Control V in the box. And then you click more, and you get the image URL right here. It's going to automatically copy to your clipboard so that when you go here and you upload a picture, you can go to by URL. And there it is there as well. So either way works, either snip it, save it, upload it, or snip it and use the paste.pics website. So that's all we have time for. 45 minutes went fast. So you will have 3 mazes, the inverse trig functions, the distance formula maze, and the midpoint formula maze. I'm going to put in this geometric mean MathLib so you can have that to follow along, or hopefully maybe if you can use it in your classroom. And then also I have the compound interest. I'll have both the Google Forms version and the slides version available for you guys to download. All right, so I hope that this was helpful and you got some new ideas or maybe learned at least one new thing. And I wish you all the best as we go into the new school year. All right, have an awesome week. That's it.